I viciously take apart Schumer and Pelosi's response to Trump's Oval Office speech on this week's Hot Take! Alright, well, let's see what Nancy and Chuck have got to say.
Good evening.
Who are these two undead goblins, and what have they done with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi? This is not cool, man. I mean, watching Democrats speak is always a horrifying experience, but I didn't expect to see an opening to Tales of the Crypt here. So I'm not going to show their entire speech, but there's several clips that I'm going to react to.
Sadly, much of what we heard from President Trump throughout this senseless shutdown has been full of misinformation and even malice.
Because y'all would be the experts on misinformation, wouldn't you, Nancy?
We want to start with the facts.
Oh, please. Y'all wouldn't know a fact if it gave you a rock bottom.
But the president is rejecting these bipartisan bills which would reopen government over his obsession with forcing American taxpayers to waste billions of dollars on an expensive and ineffective wall.
Expensive and ineffective. Wait, I thought we were talking about a border wall here, not Congress. And I love how Nancy Pelosi all of a sudden cares about wasteful spending. But you know what? I'm always happy to see someone caring about how much things cost and whether or not it's actually worth taxpayer money to be spent on. Now, I can't wait for her to start questioning Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal and how much that costs. Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. You know what else is a waste of taxpayer money? Your paycheck, Nancy Pelosi. We ought to build a wall just to keep you out.
The fact is, President Trump has chosen to hold hostage critical services.
Critical services, my ass! There's not a single part of the government that's shut down right now that we couldn't do without. And don't get me wrong, I understand if you're a government employee who is affected by it, that it's pretty tough right now if you're expecting a paycheck, which, I mean, most Americans live paycheck to paycheck, so you probably are. So I understand that that's going to be difficult, and I feel for you. I really do. But to act like the services of government that are shut down are vitally important is just asinine. It's completely untrue. The fact of the matter is, most people are completely unaffected by this shutdown and wouldn't even realize it was going on if the media wasn't incessantly talking about it. If anything, this shutdown is proof positive that the government does way more than it needs to, and that most of the things that are shut down right now shouldn't be things that the government pays for in the first place.
And withhold the paychecks of 800,000 innocent workers across the nation, many of them veterans.
Nancy Pelosi trying to tug at the heartstrings by invoking veterans. Listen, Nancy, I'm a veteran too, and most of us are quite aware that the government is very capable of mistreating us when it's fully funded and fully operational. So don't play that card.
He promised to keep government shut down for months or years.
Yes! 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 Please, God, let Trump keep that promise.
The fact is, we all agree we need to secure our borders while honoring our values.
Oh, really? Then why haven't you done it already? Border security has been an issue literally my entire life. Nancy Pelosi has been in Congress longer than I have been alive. Chuck Schumer has been in the Senate for near about 20 years. They've been there all that time and they haven't fixed the problem. And it's not just them. God only knows how many politicians, Republican and Democrat, have paid lip service to doing something about border security and haven't gotten the job done. They've done little piecemeal efforts here and there, but nothing that's actually solved the problem.
The fact is, the women and children at the border are not a security threat. They are a humanitarian challenge.
Otherwise, innocent women and children are not the only people coming across the border, Nancy Pelosi, and you know it. Now, it is true that people probably have an artificially high impression of what percentage of illegal immigrants actually are violent criminals. But the rate of violent crime among illegal immigrants should be zero because they shouldn't be getting into the country if they're a violent criminal. So the fact, as many people point out, that the rate of violent crime is actually less than most people think and actually less than that of native-born Americans is not particularly meaningful, because if we've already got that many violent criminals among native-born citizens, why would we want to import more of them? It just doesn't make any sense. And I think Nancy Pelosi is quite aware that it's these type of people that Trump and other people who favor a border wall are mainly concerned with keeping out. So she's making a bad argument here by singling out the women and children when she knows that's not the main people we're trying to keep out.
President Trump must stop holding the American people hostage, must stop manufacturing a crisis.
I'm actually going to throw Nancy Pelosi a bit of a bone here and agree that this is not quite a crisis, and that you can make legitimate arguments about why Trump is trying to pick a fight on this now, when he had 2 years when the Republicans were in control of Congress that he could have done something about this if he thought it was so urgent. That's a very legitimate question. At the same time, border security has been a serious problem in our country for a while, and Washington has shown just a complete lack of will to do anything about it. And if Trump were not doing this and were not forcing this issue, no one would be talking about it right now. So at the very least, I applaud Trump for actually being willing to take a stand and say, no, let's do something about this now.
Leader Schumer.
Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. My fellow Americans, we address you tonight for one reason only.
Because we crave attention, and if the cameras stopped following us for literally a single second, we would drop dead right here.
The President of the United States, having failed to get Mexico to pay for his ineffective, unnecessary border wall.
I mean, most of the federal government is expensive and unnecessary, but I don't hear you talking about that. He's got a good point, though, about Mexico paying for the border wall. I've always said that was stupid. Mexico is never going to pay for that wall. They're never going to pay for that wall. And Trump even trying to make an argument that they're going to pay for it indirectly in his speech was asinine. That said, Chuck Schumer, if you think that a wall or some sort of physical barrier on the border is so unnecessary, then why did you vote in favor of 700 miles of border fencing in the Secure Border Act of 2006? Now, I'm not going to draw any definite conclusions here, but it might appear to an outside observer, Mr. Schumer, that the only reason that you are opposing this border wall now, when you have voiced support for physical barriers in the past, is because you are opposed to Donald Trump, and that you have made the calculation that thwarting his attempt to get something that he has talked about so much, like the border wall, done, will benefit you politically. I'm just saying that's kind of what it looks like.
American democracy doesn't work that way. We don't govern by temper tantrum. No president should pound the table and demand he gets his way, or else the government shuts down, hurting millions of Americans who are treated as leverage.
Chuck, what exactly do you think the 2016 election was? When the American people quietly and respectfully tell their leaders for decades that they think something is a problem and they want their leaders to fix it, and then those leaders proceed to pay them a bunch of lip service and then not actually solve the problem, then yeah, eventually the people are going to elect someone who is a little less polite about getting things done. And might I remind you that you had no problem with President Obama pounding the table to get his way a couple years ago when it came to Obamacare funding.
Make no mistake, Democrats and the president both want stronger border security. However, we sharply disagree with the president about the most effective way to do it.
And you know what, Senator Schumer? I might respect that if you hadn't spent 20 years in Congress failing miserably to solve this border security problem.
So, how do we untangle this mess? Well, there's an obvious solution. Separate the shutdown from arguments over border security. There is bipartisan legislation supported by Democrats and Republicans to reopen government while allowing debate over border security to continue.
So we can go back to our bipartisan effort of ignoring this problem like we have been for the last 20 years. Yeah, no thanks.
We can secure our border without an ineffective, expensive wall.
Then why haven't You done it already! You have been in Congress for 20 years, Chuck Schumer. Nancy Pelosi has been in Congress for 30 years. And again, it's not just y'all's fault, but we have heard this time and time again. We're going to secure the border. We're going to secure the border. We want to secure the border. We take border security seriously. We've heard that so many times from so many people, and yet, this problem still persists and nothing meaningful gets done. So in my eyes, that suggests one of two possibilities. Possibility one, we do in fact need a wall to secure the border. Or possibility number two, we don't need a wall, but you and the other politicians in Washington are so utterly incompetent at enacting those other solutions that you have had decades to do it and still not been able to. Which means that even if someone is capable of securing the border without a wall, it is most definitely not you! So that's my take. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, hit the subscribe button, and hit the little bell so you can get notified when I do new videos. And also, feel free to let me know what you thought down in the comment section. I'll see you next time.